Changing jobs these days is not the sole domain of those new to the workforce. Many senior and mid-career business executives, for many reasons, are choosing to make the change. But how to make that change successful? Welcome to this BVTV Looking Beyond the Car in Front trilogy, coming to you from the UK studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. My guest today has a truly distinguished career. 40 years of experience of working with, talking to, and assessing executives with many different career journeys. He's also written a guide for those of you considering a career change, and he's got the intriguing title of Looking Beyond the Car in Front. Let's meet author and managing director of Corn Ferry. Hello, Grant Duncan.
Hi there, Malcolm. Thanks very much indeed. Nice to see you.
Well, before we came on air, I was talking to you about your book. And, one of the things I've written down as I was reading through was lots of takeaways, but plenty also of comebacks. Things you say, I want to read that again. I want to read that again. So my congratulations on a great book. Grant, across your trilogy, I'd like you to give my audience, let's call it a potted 3-step strategy to making the right career change. Working backwards, stage 3 will be executing the strategy. Stage 2 will be clearly seeing and assessing your personal opportunity. But stage 1, I see as essential, and that is truly knowing your own values and strengths. Can you get us started on stage 1? And how does your book help people at this stage?
Well, so you might find this surprising, but there are actually very few senior executives, I think, who have a genuinely good understanding of their value and their strength. And I think part of that is because when you're early on in your career, you're constantly being appraised, assessed. You're having training programs, assessments. So you've got quite a good sense of yourself. But this sort of peters out as you get older and more experienced, because people rather assume it's rather insulting to tell you, how you're getting on and how because you're now, rather grand, managing director, and so many senior executives just don't have any of that in the sort of 10 or 20 years that precede the sort of the top job. So I think one thing that the book is absolutely saying, and it's in chapter 7, Looking in the Mirror, is probably 3 rules, really. The first is actually continue to seek ongoing advice and feedback. And by ongoing, it could be every week, after a particular meeting, after a month or so, but from your peers, from your direct reports, as much as from your bosses. There's a good metaphor here, which is a GPS system. It only works because there are 4 satellites at that moment in time tracking, your position or the position of your destination. And it's a bit like that. It's like having a personal GPS tracker that is constantly helping you course adjust as you go through, and that really helps because it modifies on an ongoing basis who you are and gives you a sense of where your strengths and weaknesses are at quite a granular level. So that's the first bit of advice. The second bit of advice is to find a guide. That could be a mentor or it could be a coach, and it's really interesting because this in the States has been happening for decades. I think us Brits sort of see that as perhaps as a sign of weakness. If I have to get a mentor or a guide, that means I can't do this, myself. And that's incredibly short-sighted, because having somebody who is external to you, I mean, they might be in your company, they might be in another division or another department, but somebody who you can trust to be genuinely objective and who you can confide in as well. So that might be a mentor. It could be a coach in a more sort of structured, paid for way. But that way you do get a degree of honesty. So you're not just sort of, barking up a particular tree and it happens to be the wrong tree. So I think that is really important way of, again, getting a sense of your value and your strength. I think the final thing I talk about is a bit of self-help here, which is you can do this yourself. And it's a poor man's ikigai. So I don't know if your viewers will be familiar with ikigai, Japanese concept,
yes,
which is about getting a rounded sense of oneself. The kind of the poor man's version is asking 3 questions: what do I need? What do I enjoy? And what am I good at? I think it's really worth spending a bit of time just going through those 3 questions about yourself, because again, they really help give you a reflective sense of what's important and where your value ultimately will be. So what you need, sometimes quite basic, is, I need to earn a certain this amount of money or more, or I need to be the most, I need to be the leader, or I don't need to be the leader. I need to be the person who's the consigliere. But these sort of questions about what do I really need, as opposed to what I think I need, is one part of that. What do I enjoy is really important. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of us, what you need and what you enjoy sometimes are a bit of a clash, because what you really enjoy isn't necessarily something that's going to pay the bills. But having said all that, I always say to people, do try and think back to a time where you were really enjoying your work. What was it about that? Can you decode that? What were the characteristics of that moment? And try and recode it, so you've got a sense of the building bricks of what that time of enjoyment was. I think the third thing is a really tough one: is what am I good at? And one thing you see again and again as people become more senior, the expectation is that they're good at everything, because you've got to be, because you're the boss now, so you've got to be good at everything. And it's absolutely right. Some of the greatest leaders I know are people who know exactly what their weaknesses are, and then surround themselves with people who compensate for those weaknesses, so they can focus on their real strength. So I think there's a real bit of self-honesty there, is what am I genuinely good at, as opposed to things that I've got to try and be good at because I've got to prove to everybody that I can cover the waterfront. And I think if you start to get a sense of those 3 things, what do I need, what do I enjoy, what am I good at, then that gives you also a framework, almost a brief, if you like, for what the next step might look like. But also the combination of that, maybe some external advice from a mentor or a coach, and just listening to your colleagues, what they have to say about you on a sort of day-to-day, week-to-week basis, I think really starts to give you a sense of what your value is.
I seem to be getting the feeling that you're saying, make sure that you're enhancing and have knowledge of your emotional intelligence rather than just your technical skills, because that self-awareness and all those things that are part of emotional intelligence is what you're saying, isn't it?
Completely. I think actually self-awareness is a theme, funny enough, that comes back a lot. In the book, I interview many chief executives of major UK businesses, and a theme that comes back again and again is that self-awareness. It's very easy to lose that, either because you suppress it, because you feel you're meant to be this particular brand, in the organization or in the sector. But also, again, it sort of comes back a little bit to this British thing about, is it a bit self-indulgent? Am I succumbing to sort of some kind of softness and weakness, by having that self-awareness? But self-awareness is really important, because it then allows you to work out what you need to build on, but where your strengths are as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Grant. Now let's give viewers and listeners details of your URL, which viewers you obviously can see on the screen behind me. But for listeners, let me spell it out for you. It's all the W's, grant-duncan.co.uk. grant-duncan.co.uk. Grant's book is called Looking Beyond the Car in Front, a guide to making the right career choices at the right time. And it's published by renowned business book publishers, Routledge. In episode 2, I want to chat with Grant about stage 2 in our career change success journey. And that's clearly seeing and assessing your opportunity. I think that's an essential stage. Can we go there, Grant?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.